the Big Ten Conference, which is my favorite conference, my conference of choice. I'm an alum. I'm a fan. Nothing says Big Ten football like 2nd and 8. Has a fascinating decision to make today. They have 3 options. One of them is find another game for Ohio State this weekend because Michigan can't play. The second is what it sounds like, what I just read you, it sounds like they're going to do, which is change their own self-created rule that you have to play 6 games to get into the Big Ten championship game. The third is live without Ohio State being the Big Ten champion. Ohio State, if indeed what Adam and Heather are reporting is what happens, Ohio State, despite only playing 5 games, will get to play Northwestern next week in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. And if Ohio State wins that game, and they'll be a significant favorite, I would imagine. I give us a puncher's chance with our defense, but if Ohio State wins that game, and I would guess they'll be something like a 14-point favorite, then they have, that gives them their best opportunity to get into the college football playoff. Being a conference champion is a data point. It's not everything, but it matters. It has to matter. Playing 5 games, winning the Big Ten championship by beating Northwestern, who is currently 14th in the rankings, that's much better than not playing in the Big Ten championship game, playing another game that last weekend against a lesser opponent. So clearly the best thing that can happen for Ohio State is exactly what they're doing. Frankly, the best thing that could happen is if they found them another game to play this weekend. It doesn't sound like that's the direction they're leaning. So there were a lot of questions that come from this. The first is, should this make us at all uncomfortable? I would answer no. I would say I'm not uncomfortable with this, and here's why. Because this is the year in which all bets are off. This is a year in which you can do things that otherwise might seem unfair. I'll give you a few examples. This is a year in which just 2 days ago, the Pittsburgh Steelers played an NFL game on 5 days rest against a Washington team that was playing on 11 days rest. That hadn't happened in the last 50 years of pro football. It happened in 2020, because in 2020, anything can happen. I'll give you another example. Major League Baseball not only played a 60-game schedule, but when they got to the 10th inning, they put a runner on second base to start the inning. That is the kind of stuff they do in beer league softball. It was okay because this is 2020. And in 2020, anything can happen. So there were some who were going to look at this and they were going to say, this is craven. This is just the Big Ten shamelessly changing a rule to benefit Ohio State. Not really. This is the Big Ten changing an arbitrary decision they themselves made 6 or 8 weeks ago to benefit the entire conference. It is to the benefit of the conference for Ohio State to get a chance to play in the Big Ten championship game. You will note, I'm not giving them a win in it yet. I wish I could go to that game. I was there 2 years ago in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium when Northwestern, we played Ohio State, and people forget that was a 7-point game in the 4th quarter. But forgetting that, I will give us our chance to win, and I will root like crazy for us. But obviously, Ohio State getting a chance to play in that game gives not just them, but the entire conference the best chance to get a team into the college football playoff. And there are any number of reasons why that is valuable. So I myself do not have a problem with it. Is it fair? Of course not. So many things that happen this year are not fair. Things well beyond and above the world of sports are happening that are not fair. And I keep going back to something Dan Graziano said to me earlier this season about the NFL, and it applies to everything. In 2020, fair is not the priority. Just find a way to get something done. And that's what they're doing. So I myself do not have a problem with it. I'll be curious to see if others feel differently. I'm going to have Mel here in a few minutes, and I will ask Mel Kiper if he has any issue with it. My gut feeling is that he will not. But we'll ask him, and we'll see. Let me read you that tweet one more time, just so I give you the very latest. Again, Adam Rittenberg tweets, sources tell Heather Dinich and me that the Big Ten is expected to change the 6-game requirement for the league title game, pending further approval from athletic directors and presidents and chancellors, which would allow Ohio State to face Northwestern next week in Indianapolis. Let me go to Heather's Twitter feed. She actually hasn't tweeted anything in a little while. So we'll see if there's any more information on that. We will certainly get it to you instantly here. I love it when news breaks while we're on the air, and I promise you we will cover it closely. I would like to make the following statement, however, about this. I have felt this way for a very long time, and if you were a listener of Mike and Mike, you have heard me talk about this in a different context. But the 13-member college football playoff committee that meets every single week and will ultimately choose the fate of these teams, will ultimately decide, let's just live in a world where Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship and finishes their season playing only 6 games. The likeliest scenario right now, it sounds to me, is that they will not play this weekend. They'll play next week. And if they beat Northwestern, they'll be a 6-0 Big Ten champ. My gut feeling is they will get into the playoff ahead of teams that are 10-1 in major power conferences like the SEC. And the fact that that decision is going to be made based upon the subjective opinions of a group of people, any group of people, no matter how much football they may know, is ridiculous. I've said this 1,000 times before. All of these decisions, and this has always been in the context of March Madness, where they put together a selection committee. Lord knows we've all lived through that every year of our sports-loving life. And they come out and they choose the teams. And their criteria is, we choose the best teams. And my response has always been, what the hell difference does your opinion make about that? You know what you can't tell watching two basketball teams play? Who would win if they played each other? If you knew that, then A, you'd be living in a palace in Las Vegas, and B, we'd never have upsets. You don't know who's going to win a game when you put two teams on a field or on a court. That's the beauty of sports. And so these decisions need to be made based on some objective criteria. Make it whatever you want. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.